Okay, let's unpack this image because it's one of those stories that is so bizarre it just had to be real and, well, it's completely documented.
It really is.
So just for a second, picture this. It's the height of the Christmas season in the UK. You're looking at a living room, and right there, front and center, is a 5-foot tall Christmas tree. It's all decorated bright baubles, tinsel, probably some lights. It looks perfectly festive.
But here's the twist, and it's the thing that made this a global headline. That tree, it wasn't a fir tree, it wasn't a spruce, it wasn't even plastic.
No, it was a thriving 5-foot cannabis plant.
Exactly. And that single photograph kicks off the whole story we now know as the Aylesham Cannabis Christmas bust.
Right. It happened in a former coalfield town, Aylesham, Kent, all the way back in 2011. And our mission for this deep dive is, well, we're going to strip away all the tinsel and the media hype to really get to the core facts.
Yeah, to figure out what was, by all accounts, a pretty small-scale personal operation.
And then look at the surprisingly severe legal outcome it generated.
And for you, listening, this is a masterclass in how news narratives get built. We're going to show you exactly how one bizarre visual detail, the decorative plant, can just completely flatten the actual legal reality.
It changes the whole conversation, doesn't it? From personal use to, serious criminality.
Instantly.
So let's start with the geography. Aylesham, Kent.
It's a former coalfield town southeast of Canterbury.
And it's important to note the source material says the area wasn't exactly unused to small personal grows. It's a blue-collar area.
Yeah, not the kind of place you'd typically associate with, like, major international drug rings. And that location is so crucial when we start talking about the scale of what the police claim they busted.
Right. It all went down at a house on Adderley Avenue, and the initial police description used some very strong language.
They did. They called it a very sophisticated cannabis factory.
Okay, hold on. Let's just sit with that phrase for a second. Sophisticated cannabis factory. Where does that even come from when you look at what was actually there?
Well, this factory, so to speak, was basically just one bedroom.
One bedroom.
The sophistication they're talking about wasn't, some high-tech industrial setup. It just refers to the standard stuff for indoor growing. Lights, reflectors, some ventilation.
Stuff to maximize the yield and control the smell.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it shows some preparation, sure, some investment, but the scale was, it was just one room.
That feels like a massive linguistic leap, doesn't it? From a bedroom with a fan to an industrial factory.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like they're priming the public for a certain kind of story before they even get to the weird part.
The decorated plant.
The centerpiece, which just overshadowed everything else, this 5-foot plant, Ian Richards' Christmas tree, covered in baubles and tinsel. The sources even say the neighbors saw absolutely nothing unusual.
So beyond that one plant, what else did they actually find? Because it was clearly more than just a single decorative item.
Correct. Besides the big one, there were several other smaller plants growing under high-intensity lights with proper ventilation. So it confirms it was a microgrow operation.
Okay, so designed for personal consumption, maybe a little bit extra.
Almost certainly. It just didn't have the footprint or the number of plants or, the complex setup you'd see in a genuine commercial factory. And that's the key tension we have to keep in mind here.
The reality of the small scale versus the high stakes language the police were using.
Exactly. And that tension really sets the stage for the raid that followed.
So let's move from the setup to the action itself. This wasn't police just stumbling upon it.
No, not at all. Kent police executed a targeted raid. It was part of a winter warrant sweep right in December.
And that timing, doing a warrant sweep right before Christmas, that's tactically significant, isn't it?
Huge. It maximizes media attention, sends a strong public message, and it's right here that the official law enforcement perspective really locks in the justification for what they did.
I want to zoom in on the specific words they used because it wasn't just about finding drugs. We have that quote from PC Darren Dennett. He called it a total disregard for the law.
And that phrase, total disregard, it's so deliberate. It's designed to eliminate any gray area. It paints Richards as a serious, defiant criminal, not just some hobbyist grower.
It makes it black and white. You're either compliant or you're defiant.
Exactly. There's no room for personal use, no room for medicinal intent. Nothing.
But I have to challenge that a bit. If it was all just in one bedroom, how did the police justify the harm prevention claim? It just seems like a dramatic overreach.
They supported it by focusing on potential, not on the reality.
Ah.
Dennett claimed the room had the potential to produce a large quantity of cannabis. By stressing the maximum possible yield, they completely reframe the raid.
So it's not about arresting a guy with a funny Christmas tree.
No, it's about stopping a future large-scale supplier. And that narrative shift from a small-time arrest to a successful harm prevention operation is just vital for police PR and for getting a serious prosecution.
It changes the entire legal weight of the case, you know? If they just described it as a microgrow for personal use, it kind of loses its punch.
It loses all its severity. But by hyping the potential, they elevate the crime, and, crucially, they secure the media interest that the novelty of the tree was already creating.
It's a calculated strategy then, legal and PR working together.
Perfectly in tandem. And it allows the state to bring the full weight of prohibition, something designed for huge commercial operations, down on one guy with a single room.
Let's shift to that guy, the human element here. The man behind the ornaments was Ian Richards, 46 years old.
And his defense, right from the start, was that the entire grow was for his own personal use.
He was very clear about it. He argued there were, quote, no gangs, no distribution network, no wider ring.
He was explicitly trying to separate what he was doing, growing for himself, from the world of organized crime. But the legal reality in the UK back in 2011, it just left no room for that distinction.
Especially not after the police had already publicly called it a sophisticated factory.
Not a chance.
So let's talk about the charge, because this is critical context for you listening. It wasn't simple possession, it was Class B production. What does that actually mean?
Class B offenses cover cannabis cultivation, and a production charge is always taken much more seriously than just possession. In the UK system then, and, still largely today, the line between personal cultivation and commercial production is really thin.
So what determines it?
It's often just the number of plants and how sophisticated the equipment is, not whether you actually sold anything. And his setup, even in one bedroom, had the lights, the fans, multiple plants that pushed it firmly into the production category.
So even though he said it was all for him, the gear he used was enough for the prosecution to go for the bigger charge.
Precisely. So there he is, standing in Canterbury Crown Court in late November, right as Christmas shopping is starting. And in the courtroom, the funny Christmas tree. That's totally irrelevant.
It's just about the Class B production charge.
Right. And the judge has to weigh the prosecution's evidence, this sophisticated factory with its potential for large quantities, against whatever mitigating factors there were.
So the consequence, this is where the gap between the crime and the punishment becomes really stark.
The outcome was harsh. He got a custodial sentence of 18 months.
18 months for a small operation in a bedroom run by a guy claiming personal use, which produced that goofy photograph. Was that a typical sentence back then?
It was definitely at the sharper end of the scale, especially for a first-time or small-scale offense with no proof of distribution.
So he could have gotten something less severe.
Oh, yeah. He was well beyond a typical community order or a suspended sentence, which were often given to small personal growers.
Yeah.
It really suggests the court bought the prosecution's framing of it all. They effectively just discounted his claims about his intent.
So Ian Richards, the man who put baubles on his cannabis plant, spent the next Christmas and a big chunk of the year after in prison. The irony is just painful.
It really is. It highlights the rigidity of the system.
Yeah.
It dealt with him like he was a commercial producer, completely ignoring that the entire factory was in a small house, centered around a joke.
A joke that ended with a prison sentence.
An abrupt end.
And this story, it didn't just stay in a Kent courtroom. That image went global. It was an instant viral sensation.
Absolutely. The story was a perfect storm for seasonal media coverage. You had drugs, Christmas, and a photo that you just had to look at. News outlets everywhere ran with it. It was a perfect seasonal clickbait.
We saw headlines like Cannabis Christmas Tree, but also that more damning police language like festive drug factory. How did that shape public perception?
It completely flattened everything else. The novelty angle, the idea of this silly guy decorating his illegal plant, that became the only thing anyone remembered.
And the serious detail.
The 18-month sentence. His claim of personal use, the actual size of his grow, all those complex legal realities just got erased in favor of the easy, memorable headline. The sensational image became the entire story.
Which basically guaranteed that the police narrative of a sophisticated factory would be the one that stuck.
Exactly. The case became a perfect snapshot of UK holiday enforcement priorities. It sent a clear message. No matter the scale, cannabis production was a serious offense. And if you made it visual, you'd be made an example of.
The desire for that strong media story really seems to have dictated everything.
It really does. And the source material has this profound reflection on the case's legacy, mentioning the concept of prohibition's weight.
What do they mean by that? Prohibition's weight.
It refers to the heavy, often disproportionate consequences of these zero-tolerance policies. The idea that a legal structure designed to fight huge criminal organizations ends up bringing the same hammer down, an 18-month prison sentence on individuals engaged in small-scale nonviolent activity.
So the law just doesn't differentiate between an Ian Richards and a major commercial drug network.
Not effectively, no. They often get processed through the very same system. The source notes that this case is now archived online forever, just another small grow with a harsh sentence. It makes this quiet observation that the spectacle distracts from the real cost.
Which is
Every charge, every lost season, every sentence that never should have happened. That's the real weight of prohibition, the personal toll of these one-size-fits-all penalties. The law created a serious criminal where, the grower just saw himself as a hobbyist.
So you've got a former coal town, a guy making a weird holiday joke, a single photograph, and a police force looking for a high-profile bust.
And it all results in an 18-month sentence. The components are just so deeply mismatched when you actually look past the headline.
They really are. And that mismatch is the core insight here, I think. The novelty of the Christmas tree hook was just so powerful it got international attention.
But that very thing distracted everyone, the public, maybe even the legal system, from how severe the outcome was and from the grower's own claims. We've seen very little analysis over the years questioning why 18 months in jail was the right call for what was, a microgrow.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. If a single photograph and a catchy headline could so effectively turn a small personal operation into an international symbol of criminality and lead to a significant jail term, what other details in modern law enforcement actions are being similarly flattened or obscured by an attention-grabbing, easy-to-digest narrative? That's something for you to mull over as you think about how we consume news and understand the true costs of these policies today.